Minyami, umi mopo, wami mami nya, uto minyami, mama wodin, mami didi, wami mami nya, uto, mi wodidi, sawu beji mi wodidi, sawu beji mi, wuni jifu, wami eratie, wuni jifu, wami miretenyo.
Minyami, umi mopo, wami mami nya, uto minyami, mama wodin, mami jidi, wami mami nya, uto, mi wodidi, sewu bejimi, mi wodidi, sewu bejimi. Wone jifu, wami eratie. Wone jifu, wami miretenyo.
Wami erati, minyami, wami mami nya, uto. Wami erati, minyami, wami mami nya, uto. Minyami umomati, minyami umalipa, ejejimi,
ubumi mimi sisomi demi fufura mitiasia mitimawo mitiasia mitimawo itifamiye nyawa upe au mire niwosami ya wotio ija miro kimi ubumi mimi sisomi na jemi fufura mitiasia mitimawo mitiasia papa mitimawo asemi uswa miumawo yare kwenkwenti minya sadimi bako womopa ewope ire mitimawo mitiasia mitimawo menkwana nyinamo try and fear obatampe nasamreno suna se wutu safrenya yakoditata osuruke
Yeah.
Afternoon, church. It's the Women's Ministries Department bringing you our afternoon program. Happy Sabbath. Any good afternoon. Women's Ministries program. We apologize. Say, I late kakra. I see a besha say too. And we'll get started now. And it can be about disabilities. Now, and dear. And disabilities, more types, it be any say. And then cry na a cause disability. Now, obey dancing away how can you spot, how can you recognize, say, will be our disability. Now, recognizing, so how do you live with it? And then also, your best support system available for if, say, we are parent and I say, what's our situation even more. In the same require, you be my sister, I've been the camps, prepare the camps, and vampire my and I started program. Sister Abuna.
If I want my vampire, any child was true, yet I was sick. I couldn't out your my see a medity a home come more, and your home. Now your my yam is somno, and running up for France. And see, in yammy is slow, but now you're fin, Benny and Nincomo, but my young moon, let church train. The bayan from Swadi is also free aquemo. Never query and ning and insura, and my any apple frunina. Yet that was sick or what do say, Amen.
Amen. Your sister Abnam say a war panel being so Zoom. Will I introduce your mama and now we come once and now you home my in your programming?
Yeah, well, Nipa Bebre online. We've got social service personnel, Auntie Josephine, Auntie Emma, Uncle Kwache. We've got Auntie Pat, Auntie Mary. We've got mothers as well, Auntie Sandra, Auntie Shirley. We've got a lot of different people on the line already to contribute in
that's
whatever
excellent.
capacity they need to do.
All right, so I'll come to you quickly then. What then is disability? You know, we want to look at disability awareness. What is disability?
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm not a professional on disabilities. I'm just here as a mother of a special child. And every information that we are here, those are from a professional standpoint. The free more of an experience things that we've experienced, things that we've learned along the way that we want to give out. Now, disability would be explained as any condition impairment and living in day-to-day activities in the normal or regular way, where they find it difficult to do the things that you and I would find it easier to do, and more interaction with the world around them difficult. So that is what we would term a disability as.
I see. I guess, you know, we've got the professionals as well, but if you've got real experience of it, then I think that's also very important, because, you know, we can learn from you. And yes, you do have a child with special needs.
Yes.
And so I'm quite keen to see how you cope with it all. And you've talked about having impairment.
Yes.
And this stops a child or a person from doing the things that we will deem as normal. And so that causes them to, I guess, for us to say disability. So what are the types then?
Well, when it comes to disability, there is a very wide range of disabilities. So we would have vision, that is people who have problems with their sight. We would have people who have movement impairment, who find it difficult to move, physical activities.
So that's their limbs?
Their limbs, yes.
Okay.
And then we would have people who have thinking, remembering disabilities, so people who find it difficult to string thoughts together. When you find yourself in a certain situation, a recommended way of thoughts necessary when you don't have any of these difficulties. But there are people who find it very difficult to be coherent, let me put it that way. And then we also have people who have difficulties communicating, people with learning difficulties as well. And then we have mental health and people who have difficulties with social relationships.
And sister, now what can you be? You know, I know somebody who has Asperger's syndrome, so that obviously is a disability. So there are different types of disability. Sometimes we wonder, because when we think of disability, we think, oh, I can see that person, they don't have one leg or their arm is gone. But this is the physical disability. So can you explain the difference between the visible disability? Do it to me actually the non-visible aspects of disability, not visible, because I think that's where sometimes you're judging for. If you think so, I'm whole. Yet there's something is missing. Tell us a bit more about that.
These are the disabilities that we call hidden disabilities.
Okay.
So they are the disabilities that does not involve the physical appearance of the person. So when you see the person, you might not see, say, they have any form of impairment. So these include communication difficulties. And you wouldn't know that person has any difficulties in communicating with other people. And the way of recognizing this, in this country, we've got something called a sunflower badge. So it's kind of a lanyard. You put it around your neck to let people know, say you have a hidden disability. And yes, and then intellectual disabilities as well. So people who cannot reason as we all do. So they are also people, and mental health as well. So if somebody is depressed, they could be with you and you wouldn't know that they are depressed. And finding that out, it will involve a professional diagnosis. So if you're not a professional, you wouldn't know that these people have these disabilities.
Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to add something to what we've said? Or
I'm not sure if we've got anybody at the moment. We've got anybody at the moment who is coming on now, but later on the show, we have people. I don't know if Auntie Pat, if you are here.
So my next question is going to be around causes of disabilities. Disabilities, church ontime nante ontime movie obi also na kasa cry ho anything obi nso so wo ho na ne behavior na is it ADHD or something or many switch that one
attention
deficit something
hyperactivity deficiency.
Exactly, ADHD. And also so wo na ni so crack. And different types. And me person me hwe ne ya a cause disability.
Okay. So when it comes to disability, having a child who has autism, I sort of find myself in a lot of groups with parents and who have disabled children or people with special educational needs, special needs. And Obia has a different idea what caused it. From a medical standpoint, when it comes to disabilities, you will find a range of reasons, genetics, environmental, some people through birth when they have difficulties or complications in birth, and then you will have vaccinations, a whole range of other things. Some people come through accidents and things like that. Yes.
Sister, now autism,
Yes.
What is autism?
So autism is a spectrum. So when we say a spectrum, it means it ranges. It has a very wide range. Think of a rainbow. So it's like from one end of a rainbow to the other end of a rainbow. So autism patients find themselves all along that spectrum. And no two autistic people are the same. Okay. I have to say that. The symptoms are very wide ranged. So you will have the eye contact. A lot of these people can't make direct eye contact. A lot of these people can't communicate. That is, they have speech and language difficulties. Yeah. And then they have social difficulties as well. So, when children meet, children with autism find it very difficult. In social settings, they cannot do that. Some of these people have other accompanying difficulties as well. Some have seizures, some have other difficulties as well. So hearing impairment, sight impairment, it comes in a wide range.
Okay. Yati or autism no as say kakra. Na me was our courses. And when I asked you about the courses, you mentioned genetics, you mentioned environmental factors, you mentioned what else did you mention? Vaccination and birth difficulties. Inti wenum ye dia bi oha akolani ye be wono no na odia ba. Na we opinion, can you be born in a normal way, grow up as normal, and at some point in your older life be affected by a disability?
So autism, speaking from a personal experience, my daughter is on the spectrum. She's 6 years old now. She was born, I had a normal birth. Growing up, the birth weight was all right. Giving birth, there was a bit of complications, but it was all right. It was nothing to be worried about. Growing up, she started talking at the 11 months, Okasa, afraid anybody in the house. My sister's Nana, lady, she went to daddy, mommy, grandma, And then up until about 18 months, we realized that she wasn't going farther than that. And see, the speech was limited to the names and a few fruits, apple, banana, and that was it. It wasn't increasing. My dad, funnily enough, was the first person to notice this. I don't know why, but he was the first person to notice. I was like, oh, she loved music when she was growing up. So the minute you put music on, she's dancing and everything. So the rest of us, to us, it was normal. And she was the first child in the family, so it didn't really click. And she was very affectionate. And then she started nursery at 2 years. And the second day, I went to nursery to pick her up, and the lady pulled me aside. So I was like, oh, have you noticed any difficulties with your child? I was like, oh, what difficulties are you talking about? And she's like, One in Korana Akano, she doesn't go close to them. She always plays by herself. And on copying, be hot to ask for anything. So if she wants water, she'll just go to where the water is, or take the bottle to an adult.
So
to indicate she's not using any words. So, in fact, the minute she said that, my heart dropped, I have to say. And coming back home, my mind was racing in all directions. So I got home. The first thing I did was go on my computer, and I started Googling child not talking, communication difficulties, that kind of thing, and a whole range of things came up. And here I am fumbling. I have to say, a lot of parents that I have had contact with experience this. And Korana starts talking at a certain age, and then when they get to a certain point, they stop. They don't. There are children who doesn't communicate from the beginning, but some do start communicating, and then at some point, I think when the symptoms become more, it just they lose that speech. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Inti no trust yetimi de wo we ma odin you been to so as any can say accident kwati me cause disability and when you are normal nyame ma name masa na wakonya accident, then you can lose a limb, or you can be paralyzed, or you can even get stroke along the way in life, and then that can also cause you disability. You've explained it very well, and you've talked or touched on the recognizing bit for me, but I'll come on to that. Aya na ye maimu ye bibi maimu no ye kase akolebi wo obia wo na ne ba wo disability. Sometimes I need to be blame parents ni be we onyim no try sen ko se akola no na onum say no yes or yes say tenu nti ne me hu ne say obi o ha na e wo so kono kope help but of very say obeka ho asem. I mean approach them say nyame Israel because Ghana kola ni bi okra. They get rid of them because of more disability. Yes. What have you got to say about that aspect?
So that is something that I really wanted to touch on. I think that when you look at your culture now, growing up, looking at where we're coming from, these are things that weren't very common. You wouldn't see a lot of it. We explain it away with our cultural beliefs. Or in Sioba, or she's possessed, that kind of thing. And they'll get rid of the child without anybody knowing. And these children are alienated in our schools and things like that. They don't get the help that they need because your culture doesn't allow for these things to happen. And then even here, you will find a lot of stigmatization when it comes to these things. So akorebi wa sorry ha, let me give you a scenario. So akorebi wa sorry ha, na or hygiene or for niema or disrupted class and all that. A lot of times you hear people saying akorebi kwado hygiene dodo yentiti ni ye or mami and church no dia what's the way, you know. We tend to have a different idea. I'm not saying the ideas are not always positive about these children. So in our community, despite where we are, where we've come from, you still find that stigmatization when it comes to disabilities. And what I find is it makes the parents very self-aware, and it puts them in a position where they are not comfortable going out in social groups because it makes it difficult. We are parents with a special child. When you see and treat you bad that way, it puts you in a very difficult position. So we find that thing in our church, in our communities, in our society, wherever we are, despite the advancements that and the knowledge and information that is out there, you still find these things.
I see. I've not made our sister why explaining a hundred so mind because who here pass society sometimes need to me judge it wrongly. So, but you say 1 in every 4 persons or people will have a disability of a kind. To me, when it says sabi unai to try and I say to me kasani bibia, it doesn't mean that there couldn't be something wrong. So, but also the bit about the causes, you who say and yet self-inflicted.
No.
It's sometimes you need choice, it just happens. Into how can we, going on to the topic of recognizing and living with it, what can you share with us in addition to everything else you've talked about already,
Okay, so I think first of all, it falls on us to be open-minded. Normally, we treat people with disabilities the way we do is because we are very narrow-minded. We expect Obia Ibishanibia to be like us. In that sense, when something is just slightly off, then we begin to things and assume things. And the first step, is to be open-minded and to recognize and say, we are not all born the same. The fact that you can't see a problem that a person is having does not mean that they do not have a problem. It would be any autism, any ADHD, any Down syndrome, any Asperger's. It could be a mental health thing. The person could be depressed, and a comment that we make, the things that we say, it could take the person further back in the journey now or no. So we need to be very mindful of how we treat anybody that comes around us, because you never know. You never know. As I said, hidden disabilities, you never know. So we need to be very mindful of the things that we say and do, and then we need to accept anybody. So long as it's a nipano or the person is a living being, just like us. So we need to treat everybody with that respect and accord. Before we go on, I would like to touch on, we've got people online who are willing to help, and we need to, they need to go, so we need to bring them in now. Right. So we want to talk about the social services aspect of disabilities. Social services are involved in the life of disabled people to help them with their day-to-day life. So we have some few questions. So we would like to put them on now. All right, so we've got Auntie Josephine on. Auntie Josephine, we want to ask about the role of social services when a family have got a disabled member. Social services role I play, it was our family is what?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Auntie Josephine.
Okay, so in terms of social services, there is a social work role within children with disabilities, because we recognize a child who has a disability, or could be children, could be multiple children in the family, who may have disabilities, would require support. But before we do that, the child or the children needs to be assessed, because services without knowing exactly what the needs of the child or the children are. We'll have to assess the needs of the children or the child, and then there will be support put in place. But can I also say, or children, here social services involvement. It depends on the level of need. So the needs of the children or the child will determine the services and support that will be put in place. So for example, a child who may have ASD, who doesn't talk or has no speech, doesn't mean that he or she requires a social worker. It could be, say, best signpost the child to services within the local area that the child can involve, or the services can begin within the family. But most of the time, parents find it very, very difficult to manage children, especially with ASD children, because of their disability, the social aspect of it. It becomes too much for the family. A child who has disability does not necessarily mean there should be a social worker involved. And as I said, it will require assessments to be completed, and then the needs of the child would determine whether there should be services involved.
Based on what you've said, so that if there is a parent online on the platform who do not know whether they do need social services or not, could you give us a few scenarios where it is necessary to have a personal social worker involved?
Okay, so parents be wahana say winimo bia or at kola with needs. You first have to, a referral has to be made. It depends on the level of need, as I said. But whereby, as a parent, you feel, say, you really require some support to be able to manage your child. Maybe I know what other children within the family. Because of maybe or disability, you are unable to, devote time for the other children, go to work and do what you have to do. You have to seek the support of children's services. You can approach children's services by, which might self-refer one kasa home. And as most of the time, school na korano kon omubwa parents and our family a lot. Into more crowded to me, IF, they can refer the child to the school can refer the children or the child to children's services. They are really, really good in that because they will be able to find the right ways to be able to make the referral. And then somebody will come out and see the parents, talk to the children. We have a way of talking to children who have disabilities to kind of get an understanding of how things are for them at home. And then we talk to other professionals who may be involved with the family, and it could be occupational therapists, educational psychologists. So there'll be a range of professionals who will be involved in the family's life. So these are the areas that somebody can take to get some input from social services.
Local authority be a criteria for selecting say akorano mechi or criteria na a social worker does an assessment, and then if possible I will say social worker no remain as akorano social worker ongoing to a point I be who say a failure supporter will hear no is actually meeting akorano needs. And somewhere like Barnet or more criteria na say for a child to be allocated a social worker no. One, disability now one regardless of whether it's health complex needs and I say autism need without a or severe learning disability no. Young man or social worker after the assessment, But it doesn't necessarily mean say uni social worker unya support now here. So the needs of the child, like Josephine rightly said, come into play. And a team and also criteria for selecting and maintaining social worker involvement. So another aspect. And say assessment in as a here say social worker be involved. Other support I bet media ma be a 1 yearly annually it can be assessed to see is it still meeting a family needs. Na say yes, parents feel say the man will still adequate to help you meet urban needs. You can request for further assessment. Now it has to be proven, like Josephine say, and say schools, especially some almost specialist schools, based on EHC plan, a EHCP plan, say if there is a need, say social worker, involved ongoing to monitor akorano ongoing, akorano needs, it will have to specify that. But my name is clarify.
So what we take away is say every barabiano different guidelines for whether a social worker is needed in the family life. Now, the reason I was asking this question is everywhere I go, I'm asked, a social worker. Does your child have a social worker? And we don't. I've never.
You see, Mark Apejanis and
I'm sorry. Uncle Mark. May Pacha go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, it was one.
So be the Mark. What page on some Pacha Mark? So Kasamai na yemsheni onso. Or they was a question and a contribution.
Okay,
and yes, I into us.
So what I was asking is, say, my child is on the spectrum. Me personally, I don't feel like I need a social worker. She was assessed by a child pediatrician specialist, and then go ahead, Yamano, EACP, special needs school. In this sense, in my view, I don't think that she needs a social services assessment. What I wanted to ask, and say, is it important to have the assessment to determine, say, would you go on to need the services all the time? Or if you feel it's not necessary, then as a parent, you shouldn't bother with it?
Coming.
Auntie Amma and Auntie Josephine. Okay, I don't know if we've lost them there.
I did ask, I said, can I come in as well?
Yes, sure. Sure, Uncle Osei.
Oh, okay. Okay, so before I touch on the question you just asked, can I add something to what Amma and Josephine said? So there are support and services out there. So if you have a disabled child, don't suffer in silence. You need to tap into that support. Most often, Africans or Ghanaians, as you rightly said earlier on, when the family or mother or father, when they have a disabled child, the perception, the label, discrimination, because of that, people, they find it difficult to ask for support. But some local authorities, they have said local offer in Havering, where I'll cite Havering as an example. The local offer is 100 hours support a year. That is about 2 hours per week. You don't need any assessment, but you can also choose to be assessed. So if you decide you want an assessment, then we complete a short break assessment. But short break is the same as respite. The assessment, we use a single assessment template where we ask questions about your income, accommodation, parental capacity. We check all that. But because it's a bit intrusive, some people, they find it difficult to ask for that support. It has no impact on if you're assessing DLA or any benefit, or you're a rich person or poor. The support is there. You have to ask for it. The reason why we do that is to assess and see, do you need an allocated social worker or you need only respite support? And regarding respite support, we have something we can respite holidays and also overnight. And even if you are struggling, you can still sign Section 20 where your child will be accommodated, but you get opportunity to visit your child. So if there are no concerns, there are no issues, in addition to what Josephine and Amma said, you don't need any allocated social worker. However, there will be a package in place for you. We review packages every 12 months. However, if the package is not working and you request for more support, we can review it before 12 months. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Well, you have a very good answer for us there. Thank you. Our other question, which you just touched on, could you go into detail, a bit of detail, about the services and benefits that are available for people with disability when it comes to, in different terms, in terms of financial, educational, social, all these things? If you could touch on a bit of those for us, what support and services are available and the benefits?
Okay, so I'll start, then Amma and Josephine can add something. So the local authority where I work, we have direct service. So direct service, the cost is about maybe £22 an hour, £40 an hour, it depends on the provider. Then we have direct payment. So direct payment is £12.67. So direct payment, what it means is you get a personal assistant. You can use a family friend, you can use a relative, but if you're using a relative and you have the same address, my local authority, you have to complete something we call exceptional circumstance form. So you complete the form so that we will agree, management will agree if we are going to pay and allow that person to be the PA to take the child out, because a stressful job. Even children who are not disabled, if you have one or two, it's hard work. So a child with additional needs, then the problem becomes more. So you need that support. So it's possible a PA can take a child out, your child out after school, maybe for 2 hours to give you time, as one of my colleagues said, for you to focus on other children or do other things as well. Another support is if we have a PA in place, if you are employing the PA, then we need to do DBS, police checks, to make sure there are no issues. You can use the person. The local authority can also do the checks and also can provide a PA for you. Regarding direct service, we have overnight. So overnight, say you have a disabled child and you want the child to go and spend 2 or 3 days, so maybe Friday to Sunday. So transport will come and take your child to a certain provider. They'll spend time there. Then Monday morning, they'll take the child to school. So after school, you can go and collect your child. Another option is maybe school holidays, that your child can spend maybe 5 hours to 6 hours somewhere. It will give you time to do other things. There are other support we have in place if you are struggling and you find it difficult to cope, to manage your child. Some parents, they sign Section 20. So what it means is your child will become a look after. But because some parents that, it means I've given my child away, so I'm not going to do that. Then they keep on struggling. Then there will be issues. Schools, other professionals are going to report issues to social care. Then when we become involved, either we manage the case under a child in need or a child protection plan. But we don't want to go there. That is why we are saying there are support and services. So please tap into these support and services. With Section 20, the good thing about Section 20 is because it's not a court order, anytime you want your child back, within 24 hours, the local authority will give your child back to you. Another thing is, in our local authority, if your child is accessing more than 75 overnights a year, then your child automatically becomes a lack child. So what we tend to advise parents, try to bring it below 75. I don't know other local authorities like Newham and Barnet, Amma and Josephine. Do you have something to add?
Amani. Support na yeka no. Assessment no ehwe se wonkwa na wotia na. Ankwara sai na wo. Na how is the impact on the disabled child and on you, your ability to care for your other children so they don't become children in need? Anna, so when says you na ye hunu say ebia one akwala no ASD or na papa. And you know, maame na papa you are being deprived of sleep. But adwuma at the same time. Ebi so kra no medication so. And you know, anase obi so after school no, especially your parents, obu ha na adwuma o ye no ye after school. Ontimi nya akwala no honko. And you know, where the support is needed. And together with you as maame no, Barnet, what we do no say, there is something called a provision map. The provision map no, be a Monday up to the week in and every hour no is there is like a chat. And you know, from be anopa school term time no, anopa me get in up be 7 o'clock. May say because time say. And we no or free school or free vehicle school more. 5 hours. It is our time in 5 hours no. You see, it seems like a respite for the parent, you know. And so who here support is so befia. How often do you need it? When do you need it? How do you want us to provide you with the support? And once the hours are calculated, ye baby saw say there were two options. Either will be a akwara no nim no a we comfortable with. Especially when more disability no when they get used to someone is the enya papa say you be changing regularly. Nti so obi nim no dada na nipa no nti wo fie ho na obetimi aboa wo with hours na. The here ne so wo DBS no we will provide you with the hours no for you to continue to care. Ana say enya no so a there are agencies omo specific for specific disabilities. Ebi mo ha omo specialize with complex health needs. Most of them no ya na omo as a nurses. But the nurses it's a year 2 nursing care. Social service ya na provide support no papa because the ordinarily support to ordinary care agency no will provide no. And to me yeah to say akora wo hia sectioning. And I say we here nursing care no. And social service support na ye dem man mostly and what difficult healthcare needs and provide more with the level of support no. And yes we are doing that to discriminate say one there support. But in doing that and I was say yes safeguard akora no say support ye dem man say ye dem man say 1 hour for be to come in. So akora no mama me no nya respite no. If a corona urban is he competent to do the support no? Said ya beya session in a oya ubehunu dia oya na korana nchuku. Enti minim severe and our friends school holidays no. Local authority bia the different. There will be a friend say respite. It's a must. Say akwala bia or disability so disability living allowance. Now EACP planner or qualify for respite no. It depends on how you as a parent want it to be provided. Ebi wo ha ye wo centers mostly specialist needs teachers any special TAs and wo ho enti local authority na prefer say or more best solicitors staff from the local schools which I'm are aware of or more dada and staff no so nim kwara needs dada and it provides consistency emma and kwara parents also are reassured say because omo are able to meet and kwara needs adequately. I think so obi wo ha night time to say overnight support parents ni bi wo ha to say kwara omo na obi wo ha wo here medication be about twice or 3 times in the night you're very disrupting for a parent's sleep. And I sleep deprivation so it made the mental health issues say too long a time. And how do we mitigate that? And only say a bit more carers no be betting about fear depending on what you want. A bit so you said our centers a crown of betting free fear, alcohol, the buha from Hono, then the school transport will pick them to school. Most of them they are not parents only want it at the weekends, which gives them a long break for money or mama can. I think so there is another support because they say a disability because of this the impact of the care and as the level of support disabled child it impacts on the parents' ability and capacity to spend quality time with the siblings. And the local authority be support specifically for siblings in the school holidays. Obi so how would you soon so after school? They go to that center depending on the akorana non-disabled child epen. Ebi wo ha omoye artwork. Omoye niema bebre ebi kra ye do omko football club ni ade. Enti de anka akorana ne wo fia because of ni nua disabled child enti ne maame no enya time onye man. Somebody is able to step in, which prevents sometimes non-disabled and colano resent or more disabled children and a bimokra because our feel say nuntina the parents need to spend the time with them. I think so there is something called a family fund. Family fund is a local authority per se, but it's a charity within the local authority. And a 1 year and a parent bet me apply. Family fund application normally the parent na one more support but and she said the social worker amount to confirm, say, this is the level of need. Only family no. Yeah, no, to me, anything to do with to support you to care for your child. And a bit me, I say, Bia, I was our dear Koran school, car de to be mount dear. But we bet me a so a car now him driver, and now person driver. They can pay for your driving lessons for you to do it. I could be because I would drolly a lot. In Tinatari, they be enough for a hiansa yesini, they be anti washing machine to me say. They can provide you with a washing machine. Obi wo high a more fridge, a big square high more different beds. And you might be brave or more betty mediama. I think to say, oh, fear. Now, to say, more ASD. No, I don't know if I'm talking too much. I will be at us. And Kora more ASD. No, do how banging head on the wall. And you know, and yes, as a parent, no, you can try our home because who feels a crano prano. But akolano a sensory need for akola or didn't tin the body no sa when your sensory need I satisfy no. And you know, how do we help akolano to still get the sensory need while banging the head on the wall, no? But preventing him or her from hurting their heads? And you know, local authority, like if there is a social worker involved, or more better, you better my referral to a occupational therapist for them to come and assess the home. To see where a room needs to be padded. And a parent responsibility. There is something called Disabilities Facilities Grant. Now it's up to 32, I think there's 32 to 64,000 a year. Akolabia or severe disability no qualify for that. And it's mainly for adaptation in the home to make the home secure for Akorano. And it will be say here. It needs to be given. Auntie
Amma, thank you so much. In fact, me my point be about the sleep deprivation. Say, I think I need help there. So thank you very much. I didn't know there was a service for that. So I'll look into that myself.
There are so many support in that area. If you grow school, there is a support. If you are it's just one person better. Particularly with ASD, separation from the parents to go and sleep on. A problem, regular sleep routine, consistent. A at a particular time, no at a particular time. When you do it, Nasa still won't mean naturally say your fault. You need to be helped because sleep deprivation here, one area, most people, whether it's a complex health needs and as a behavioral needs, parents are really, really struggling.
Yes.
Now there is a possibility to say, the akorani kusku bit many accident. Ubet me ama akorano wrong medication because when you come, akorani bet me piabon chen krama ka krabon. Because nipa when you come be brisa ukatewenia, which is not your fault. And if it's something that you think you need to progress and request for that.
I definitely will look into that. Thank you very much. I think one thing that we've had here is the use of the acronyms that professionals need to know. So I want to just go a bit into that. ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. So that's what it stands for. EHCP, Educational and Health Care Plan. So when you have a child with difficulties, especially educational difficulties, after your assessment, a plan is put together to cater for the needs of the child. And see, it would contain where the difficulties are: speech and language, communication, occupational therapy, self-care. They'll put all these things into EHCP, which is the Educational and Health Care Plan, to help you. I don't know if there was any other acronyms.
Sorry, Education and Health Care Plan. What I would advise parents here, our platform, you said. Once a support is put on the plan, it becomes a legal document and it forces whoever is to provide what to provide it. In the support, we hear if you know. So go back to the school during the annual review. Education and Healthcare Plan. The hear be no Because once it goes on, whether it's 10 hours a week, whether it's 20 hours, legally, the local authority is bound to provide you with that.
That is a very good point, Auntie Amma. Thank you. I'm learning a lot today. Thank you very much.
Mpacho, I have a question.
Mpacho, go ahead.
Mpacho, Auntie, you can't say about EHCP. No, my person may be say, I have to wait for the annual review? No, and stand up, my KBB or between.
Debbie, you don't have to. Whenever I feel, sir, change biaba na support are needed to mitigate the change. It's not on the plan. You can call for a review of the plan at any time. But so one for BBI and a review annually. To bet me I request for the support before the 1 year review.
All right, thank you so much, Auntie Amma, Auntie Josephine, and Uncle Osei. From the social services standpoint, Mama, a lot of points. Thank you so much. Uncle Kwachi's hand is also up. I think he's also something about the social services aid. So, Uncle Kwachi, the floor is yours.
All right. My line of work, and yet with children with disability. I'm also doing a lot of learning today. From the Amane, Auntie Joe, Mr. Nima Kwakano, Miss Yanema Bebre. Now, maybe Juma child protection. And there are a few, and then maybe I'm a person may raise it. I think here, Casano earlier on, you can be about. I'm saying now, kind say, Crawford Busao say, are there now, but no need social worker. You don't feel the need to have a social worker. And I don't think that there has been anything I compare who said Chinchina, I was say, who it was social worker. But my person can be said sometimes, under certain circumstances. I mean, not requesting for support and not requesting for an assessment, could also become a child protection issue. This is very debatable. Obi because what are you talking about? But I have something in mind, say, and I can give you a scenario. Me I made an down for be now or more or abofra or autistic. Now it was more of the behavior on kasa. The behavior now or no toilet papers no we be the table body. None of yet ding. Now I alata for Mameno. And a primary carer of Abofrano. The woman was struggling to cope. Uncle said, can be said, don't suffer in silence. Okay, now you may decide to suffer in silence. That's your own issue. Ebia officer, ebia free but no. So Oka say, Mama may help her. What be little one answer Obusan for because now then I would want to mention about now Busa will be no more Buama show, but until why just over suffer. It will get to a point where then you not requesting for that support becomes an issue. In the American, I'm afraid Mameno was willing to say, may call almost greenish, may call my kubusa more. Papa no see a hen ha. So now they may back social services for man crofobem fee, dear may year one. This becomes a child protection issue. So it gets to a point where the child's needs were not being met within the home. But the parents were divided in terms of opinions as to whether we go for support or we don't. Of course, the father had his own uncle. In the end, it was picked up. About school, not. Or special, but I don't know how it happened, but it can happen. I mean, Ukraine be better my access. I'm a kind. A bit my access or more, or bit my access special needs education and even a brown crack cancer or buy access special needs education, but only social worker. This is how I started for this boy. In a drew time and case so here a bit more support, more than what was being offered. Papa said there be. If we are seeing Greenwich came in through the back door. This time it's not about say. parents not approach your move. They came because they felt the child's needs were not being met. And then child protection, child being removed from home by police, on BBFL, it's a police protection, police powers of protection. Na akobasa sana dana na jona bofrana tunyama nyina gumame nti police for abaho. Omba honom no. Abofrano had to be taken away to protect Abofrano and to protect the family. And then the question was raised as to why have you not sought support? This is where child protection comes in. In as much as all parents all the right, let me use this word. I mean, for lack of a better word, all right to say me here support. No, be careful because who here support there, then it's assumed that you can meet the child's holistic needs, not part of it, but every bit of it. Now, so one team in us support now, and it's established that the child's needs are not being met. It can lead to something else. Can lead to child protection. It can lead to the child being taken from home. The American, it was not just about police protection. The child was taken into care by police. The local authority had to go to courts, issue proceedings, and then they got in what we call interim care order for the child. They went ahead to get a care order for the child, and that child is now permanently being looked after by the local authority. When you are making the decision as to whether to go for support or not to go to support, if you decide not to because you feel you can't do it, please ensure that the child's needs are wholly met. Mr. Demetim Diaboa coming from the child protection arena. Thank you.
I feel so sorry to make us a baby. And more with this disability. No? Normally, now we overlook. Oh, mommy, oh, Kafra, na mammy. My wink one and best mammy or bread. And no yana you overlook the child protection aspect, you know. One thing I'm realizing is young Africans, you know, because like is it Josephine? And I said one of the hosts he said, you know, because of your beliefs in it, you know, or you're very susceptible to aspiration. And you won't mean no drink and I sense you directly without to say you did. Omo powdered way be friend tekna yadi gum ne akora no atimia anum je se wonum nsu e wo se wonum but in with a different texture said e be ya onchoku yeah normally no yeah see oh nyame ya wie fama no anya hwe se nyame anya wadum na se akora no de wo se wodi gum no wan fama na enwum na se wo de yes wo nyame be ya yes ye nim se nyame wo ho nyame no anso na ama doctors inimdia o mode hwe nkora no na se wan fa ama no ye betimi a lead to say we lose wo ba no because wonni wo say wonti wo ba no needs na se na watimi aketafo mpamcho madema no asisi obi so wo mo afofra
and so from their aunties, akane, uncles, nakano, what we can summary of it and say, whatever the needs are, if you need support, look for it. You can access it. My stigma na surrounding these things, you know, and prevent parents with these special children, no. Suffer in silence. We should always seek for these services and support whenever we need them because they are available for us to use.
Abnayanko Zoom, I shell kisi amanesa. So if you also say Mark PowerPoint, that's the name. Tiyanko shell ho if you want to call Mark ho.
You patron in Gaspar na the mass was I just me and some yekin. Na ya safui ya church ni here side no pa uzana say nipa no bebro ho wo autism no asafu but omunye bold now so mbeba out if you say sa stigma na e de territory yo mo ho that say ana aso no obi kura hu say bia akwa no issues bia say ni biso aka asem no kura no wa hia o maame no na say papa no be fia obesu a wa hia so obekon to kwa sa wa sorry. And it's and church we know. You say a man here a bad do. The arrow who say, we nipa walk line so yɛtie ne ɔmo YouTube na wo de compare your church ne membership na yɛ sɛ esua koraa nti ɛsɛ yɛma saa nkyɛkyɛ ne ba na yɛyere yɛ ho na asafomma no ahodoɔ no nyinaa nya saa nteteɛ no nti ehu sɛ ebi a family bi ɛɛbrɛ na akora bi wɔ issues a yɛkora ne sɛ yɛ come together na yɛ support family because ebi ɛɛkɔ amane mu paa ebi a na ɔtwe no nyinaa na obetumi abra nka ɔba asɔre hɔ no na ɔhɔ na nsa nka yɛ baabi a beaeɛ bi a ɔba a ka obenya asomdwe kakra na bi a adɔfo bi asɔ ne mu ama ne ho ayɛ ha no kakra but arawusam sɛ yɛba hɔ a nsɛm kora bi a sɛ wobɛtene sɛ kum okra nti ɛsɛ church no yɛhwɛ ne yie paa na afei ɛkwan a wokɔ ɔmo kyerɛkyerɛ courses kɔ so kɔ a ɔmo sɛ ɔmo sɛ ɛkwan akora bi fa so bɛyɛ autistic no ɔmo ayɛ additional ɔmo yɛ research na ɔmo nim kwan ɛfa so ba Nyankopɔn na yɛ biribiara ɔnyɛ ɔfo bi asɔ bɛwɔ na bia ne ba wɔ issues obia ne ɔpɛ ne saa but nya ba ne sɛ because Nyankopɔn ne de ma nti ɛba saa wotumi nya ho hwee but yɛ a yɛbɛn no ɛne asafo no yɛ family kɛseɛ pa ɛsɛ soso saa afoɔ no nti ɛsɛ yɛ careful paa na yɛtumi bɔ yɛ ho ɛnam sɛ saa families ɔmo saa issues no ɔmɔtumi anya anigyeɛ ɛne akɔka ama pa na ɔmɔtumi de ahwɛ mmɔfra no patweme so mu ampɛ sɛ mede boa no meda ase
Thank you so much.
And yɛnkɔ Mark hɔ.
Yeah, me Patricia na moa na me pesa me de eboa. Mpanimfoɔ na dike aka bi but the make me can say for people with learning disabilities no they have to be involved in their care especially for person centered because we care plan na anasis wo fear na owa normally no o senya support from learning disability nurses omo ba ne akora no be discuss what are the means akola no ehia intimation me hu ni se mpanyimfo ana awofo no nso omo wo emma omo learning disabilities no omo no nso no man kola no nso so enkola no nso timi nso so express themselves because there are so many support out there even sakrani timi kasa we have talking mat easy readers so many things are ebetimi dia boa abofra no nso timi express ne ho intimemu a mesmetimi de aboa no
But me kakra de waka no no enti sa assessment no say ye assessment na ye enema me ensa a wo say ye hwe eye say ye di kan pa say the voice of the child because irrespective of me manager be na kan asem we dada na to me tiri mu we say obi ani ho a wo ye disabled it's the lack of support for the disabled child to function like any other person in the society no that disabled enquirano but not necessarily the disability. Akorabia is able when he's provided with the support. We hear support no support to express themselves. Like Mami rightly said, so Mami no kura unimua because at school no they have akorabia kind of first communicating. So yeah, assessment and as a woman we hear how to appropriately communicate with Ubanoa. Contact the speech and language therapists in the school. Omobe assess akola no said there kwanya of first expressing itself. Enti sebia akola no pese wo football. Na wo maame no say there be park we nkrama wo so. Enti me pese wo de no kobo tennis ya. Akola no de oye no emwa no ni behavior no ompe no ontimi nka nkyere wo se mempe. Ebema wo be express dislike ni through ni behavior which will become challenging for you as a mom. And as a dad, you need to manage. And you involve more in care plan now. A boy young as parents, just as it helps in
Yeah, that's the auntie.
Now I want to remember quickly. So be watching on Facebook and I say YouTube no question. On bet me I post it am I and I say.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
They can. If you have any questions or contributions, please do so. I want to talk to parents what their experiences have been, what you notice. Let's say as having children is hard enough. Having a child with special needs, it's beyond difficult. There are no words that can describe it. I mean, the first day I want to share personal experience. The first day I made Penelope Cole's school. Bus never found a coy, so I followed in the car. And then when I got to the school, buses now were arriving, and children were getting out of their buses. And when I saw some of these children, I counted my blessings that day. Before I got to the school, I was in a position where I would wake up every night in tears. And throughout the day, my mind was all over the place. But that day when I went to the school, I realized, there is no easy disability. Every disability is difficult. And when you get yourself in that position, believe me, if you do not have a good support system, you cannot survive it. And parents find it very difficult. So I want us to give opportunity to, if we have any parents here, what have they done to encourage themselves? What experiences have they got to share? When you are first diagnosed, that it's a very difficult time for parents. And for parents on here who have experiences to share with us now, we have Auntie Sandra on the line. If she would be able to share with us what her struggles have been, what the positives have been, how she's been able to cope, and what advice she can give to parents experiencing these difficulties, would be very grateful. All right, I think Auntie Sandra is not available. When she comes on, we would like to hear from her as well.
Abna, in that case, do you mind if I ask you that question?
Yeah,
because I said, a child. In fact, I'm watching her and I can see, so you're getting a bit emotional. But we thank God that we're pulling you through. You're strong. You encourage the women in the church. And so how do you do it then? Tell us.
For me, I think by the grace of God, I have got a great support system. Family, in the sense of family. My mom, my sisters, there are people in this church, Auntie Aisha, Mami B, Auntie Esther Reju, Mami Anna, they've all been great support to me. Abrefi, Fido's wife, she's been exceptional. Saturday, she takes Papa so I can focus on Penelope. And it's been great help. I cannot express how it's been. So my support system have been great. And it also stems from having a positive outlook. We take things for granted. Bawananti, Odiagro, and all those things is normal. When you have a child that struggles, when they do something ordinary, to you it's extraordinary. When Penelope once in a while comes to lie on me and says, I love you, believe me, I'm over the moon. It's something that does not happen often, but when it happens, the feeling is immeasurable. So it's about focusing on those positive things. I have come to believe, these things that she does, they're extraordinary. So I see her as an extraordinary girl. She cannot tell me how she's feeling. She cannot tell me what she wants. So I have learned to anticipate her needs. It's not the best. Her teachers keep telling me I shouldn't anticipate. I should let her learn to tell me. But I have learned to anticipate her needs and to be always a step ahead of her. So I know what she's going to ask for even before she asks for it. Sometimes I have to wait for her to make that effort to ask. But I always try to be a step ahead of her. And also to see, Obano, it's not something that she cannot overcome. She might not be able to overcome it in the normal way that everybody does. But with the right support and services, as was said before, there is nothing that she cannot do. It might take time. It might be difficult. The journey is hard. But recognizing, when you have patience, that in due time, all these things fall into place. Most of the times we look for answers way too quickly. We want it to happen. We want her to potty train, time of Ubiaba potty training. Penelope potty trained at 5 years old. And we had tried since she was 2 years. We'll try for months, and then at some point we'll give up. We try for months, and at some point we'll give up. Of course, good, they were trying. No go. One Sunday afternoon, we are in the house, even at the living room, and then she starts taking off her nappies and trousers, and we're all like, Benson, I don't know where we're running home. I'm like, we're all panicking. Penelope, what are you doing? And she's running up the stairs. So we follow her. And then she goes to the bathroom and she sits on the toilet. And that was it. So it took time. But I believe with patience, they will get there. It would be difficult. The journey is difficult. I'm not going to lie and say it's easy. It's difficult. As a parent, you will cry, you will have heartbreaks, but patience and perseverance is what will get us there. Now, on that note, no.
Becky amane saso ewo Zoom on kasa yenti mpacho yenko ho nanke yenhwe wo ya odeba. Me pacho Becky wo Zoom.
Me was so.
Me pacho kasa maye why say questions so afabra.
Me pacho no bisa say how now you deal with it. I think so the first point is say you need to accept it. Sometimes as parents, because especially within the Ghanaian community, the stigma we tend to struggle to accept that fact to say, Obana was problem. Excuse me, maybe, if that's not the right word. But the earlier near accepting a boy, my answer, you're open-minded about crown, yet to me, steady, like things that are working, things that are not working, and then you can go for the right support. But because of the stigma, sometimes you don't want to even open our eyes to look at sad things. And in a dear Bianca, so woman, no accept to say yes, me about this problem, and Kauber Shana Bia. You just looked at it as Naibia, Obe helping, no, Obe educating in a way, no, Obe say, no, I frustrate you, now done it. Like this argument between you and Obama, which I am helping crowd the mom, we am so much distress, and even as a parent, no, of course, so much damages that time you are now you're like sad. And sometimes also, that me personally, the challenge that I'm facing, most of the time it's like, it's within the church. You feel like, say, yes, I'm struggling out there. Within other people may struggle. School, a chronic struggle within your friends. Once you have such child, you tend to isolate yourself. You feel that lonely, that pressure on you. You want to withdraw yourself because of judgment. People judge you. They judge your child. The way they look at you, they stare at you. And when you come into the church, probably, yes, I'm in the church. My worry was sorry, my home. That's the place you will even expect the support that you want for your child sometimes. But unfortunately, the church sometimes, some individuals makes it even worse. That personally, Saturdays will become a nightmare for me. Sometimes, I wish that Friday should never even come. That I have to even go to church on Saturday. But because of your beliefs, Saturday you drive like you are obliged. It's within you. You don't want to stay home. Saturday become even longer for you. So you just want to come to church. But at the same time, deep down in you, you don't even want to be there.
With us, I can feel the emotions in your voice, and a lot of us can empathize with you. There are a couple of comments. I won't mind if I read that quickly. And I say,
Auntie Shirley is on there.
Auntie Shirley Kisi Mifacho, I think it's a man that spoke before, but Mpacho, Shells Kisi Kasamaye.
It's a husband and wife. So.
Oh, Auntie Shirley Mpacho Kasamaye.
Like sister, you can't Auntie Becky can't. It's not easy. It's not easy because like beginning make no can't. Obi any who are expect to see a Becca say. And yako free community be more. I think say you no the word autism and not special needs no. Ye nya bibi mpo wotwi kasemo ne ede aye into so na adwen ye oyarefo oyeyi. The main problem we try to cope with is our child not being stigmatized. And what we have learned, and I said what I have learned and how I have been able to cope till now, he's 6 years going on 7, is first of all, like all the two people said, you have to accept, which is not easy because sometimes it gets to a point that being a married couple, there's one who will accept and there's one who will have difficulty. And you will be struggling, trying to accept and help your child, and you have your spouse and so or no, so not struggling to accept. I was say, or no so obuano. Sometimes even at home, no, maybe you have learned, say, oh, this is what is going to help my child. Maybe a obanu wufie and the shakola be a bema no kwejuma. Sometimes it's the other way. It's who said this is what helps the child. But because the other one can't accept, no, they be a no na makulano, my overstimulated, we hear a sensory, but although sometimes at church, so you get people who actually are willing to support, who are actually willing to help, even though they don't know what to do. You don't have to know what to do to help. You can ask. You can ask. Even you might not know, but it's a great help to people with kids like that. Because what we don't know is we forget mostly in Sakolano and it's something that is there. They will grow up, they will learn to cope, but the child becomes an adult with autism, so it's still there. It's a journey, very long. Say Akolakra neurotypical no. As soon as we can easy with additional needs is very difficult, and adding is doable when you see your child to have a case or you're disabled, but our ability, and you concentrate on what the child is capable of and work towards that. Remember, I'm saying I need you train so who pioneer, most of the time, that's where we work towards. If I see a humanity be a year, and you'll be to do 2-3 hours with train station. Rebecca said, now which you need to maybe a debate. These are the things that help. It is a community now to you get someone, to make us, but you never the final train station because when you say a colana need sadi and no crime or the respite you need no any. It's difficult, but I think say if you are in the right community and you get the right help and then swap, you are able to cope because when say will be a or bebo until like me kunuka in the beginning. No, I think say we are talking about this topic because we are not used to talking about this openly. I'm even surprised he said something today, which means we've come a long way. Until now, I think it's time for us to get together and support each other. So you will be with a year. My say and a sign what I saw now say sometimes no is the lack of you what it is about and the money probably say but I think say although it's difficult, you can break that barrier, and educate and create awareness. And I hope say this is a big step towards that, saying you create so our children will be included and not feel like they don't belong. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Auntie Shirley. Thank you. I've been on this journey with her, so I know how she feels. Our children are about the same age.
That's it.
Thank you very much for coming on.
I've made a couple of contributions.
Sorry. I don't know. Some more joining National Autistic Society. If okay. That's good.
I'm a topic here. I generated a lot of discussions. It may be say better us one another time because I will say upon 4 o'clock. But Auntie Agnes Sapong on Facebook, because see, having a child with behavioral problems and disabilities can be very challenging. Patience, understanding, and support is needed not just for the child, but also for us as parents, as it can be very testing trying to support and parent a child with special needs. Being positive is key, and knowing where to access support is also important, as many parents are unaware of where to access the help from. And nuntina hopefully kakrana ya share no yeve buani intino yankoswani educated. Cecilia Nimako says, sometimes I do not believe that people understand people with disabilities, especially our Ghanaian community. My very own child who has grown up in the church has had these experiences. We need more programs like this to educate our community. So thank you. And sister Mia Joanne sister, unfortunately, that is the bitter truth. The church makes it worse. Abna, what have you got to say about these comments?
A couple of before lockdown, I think it was somewhere early last year, before the lockdown, a lady came to church, children's department, with her 2 boys. And to your buy, I noticed the saying Korano were very hyperactive. So I went to her and I maybe and said, oh, ne man na no si na na ne ba de waka say oh ma sorry. Into on your catcher ne ba say o de na no ebeba sorry. And na maybe san or they say or ADHD and I say autism, no say autism. I was like, oh okay, well my daughter too, so is this her first time? No, so we about her a couple of times, but this is the first time of the boys, you know, Abba. And Korano were playing out there, and I almost would be Akorabako biscuit kutano. And the other child's mom just rushed and snatched the biscuit from Akorano. And see, my name, so I just said she shouldn't say anything, so she let it go. And so another child went to them as in to play with boys, you know. And the mother quickly, another parent, also and free as if to say, I don't know, sir, if they think that it will be infectious, and the woman just got up, no, just her Quranic jacket. So it's like, oh, mom, I day, what's the media? And I was like, oh no, don't. And your parents need any behavior like that. To be honest, I tried talking to her for over 5 minutes. She didn't stay. And I didn't Quranic jackets in the show, and she left. I was asking her if I saw the number, mommy, I would like to talk to her, but she didn't. And since then, I didn't see her come to church and the other call lockdown. And that little act now, these 2 parents say, it has discouraged her from bringing Nebano Enka into a society. She should have got the support that she needs. So I think, so 1, the parents in the church need to be educated. And then 2, the children's department leaders, so they also need to be educated. Even if these children cannot have the same programs as the normal children are doing, that the other children are doing now, then there should be other programs for our children to do as well within the church, because they've also been born into the church. When Pastor asked me, we all answered yes. So it's not just the neurotypical children that we have that responsibility of taking care of. Every other child born into this church, if not even not born, brought into this church, the moment I'll be we have to consider, say, and accord them. I've got Auntie Comfort on the line. She's very active in supporting this initiative. And I want her to talk about some of the things that as a church we can do to help these children. Auntie Comfort, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I don't know so much on the issue, just a little bits that I know anyway that I think we can do as a church to help. So I'm very involved with the Pathfinder and Children and Adventurers department. And currently, as before, I can see there isn't so much involvement, or at least in the curriculum anyway, with children who have additional needs or special needs. The curriculum itself does not cater for it. And I still think even within the children's department, in our church anyway, not that I've seen, I should say, we don't have a separate lesson or class or activities that cater towards the needs of kids who need this extra requirement. So I think we need to put measures in place to help. So things that we can do in terms of to help these kids who have these issues can be, different activities. So having a sensory play corner, for example, because a lot of these kids, mainly relating to autism, so a lot of these kids are overstimulated, which can be from lots of noise and lots of sound and lots of people being around. Church can be very busy and very stimulating for us as adults, and it can be very long. A lot of the times we come to church from 9 o'clock and, sorry, there's an echo. Come to church from 9 o'clock and don't leave until about 5 or 6 or sometimes even 7. And for us adults, it can be very long and tedious, let alone for a child, and a child who also has additional needs. So having measures in place, a little corner where the child can have quiet time, which I think, when kids are young anyway and they little, this is something that's incorporated into their daily routine. So at church, having places where a child can go and sit down, having toys, sensory play, so things like kinetic sand, obviously making sure that it's safe for the kids where they can sit down. A lot of the time, kids also like the different textures and noises, kind of like tissue paper, the noises that it makes. So having little corners that the kids can go and play. Also having so there can be physical support that our church can also put in place to help. So some churches have this. I think most churches should have this anyway, but having making the church easily accessible for those who have physical impairments. So if a person was to come to the church who's a wheelchair user, for example, is the church catered for them to be able to come and take part? I know some churches, the kids normally are either upstairs or in a room which is not near the front of the church. So if somebody who's a wheelchair user comes to the church, will they be able to come to the children's ministries? Will they be able to physically get to the room that all of the other kids are in and actively take part in the service? Emotional support, again, I think it was mentioned about Sabna mentioned about anticipating Penelope's needs before she knows them. So us as a church, we're a family. We all took an oath that we would vow and help take care of the kids. So do we know the kids that come into the church, in the children's department? Do we know the kids that are there? Do we understand them? Do we know their needs? Do we know what they like and what they don't like? And what can we do to help them to make sure that they feel supported whilst they are at church? Do the other kids around them understand how they're feeling? Because a lot of the times, I think a lot of the parents have mentioned that coming to church is one of the places where they feel where they should get respite, but they don't get respite. Do their kids that they're coming with also understand it? Because sometimes kids can also be very mean and pointing fingers and also laughing and making fun of their own peers. So what can we do, as leaders, as members of the church, to make sure that the kids also understand to treat other kids the same and not treat them differently as well? And just making sure that the kids are accepted in the church. I don't know what else to add.
Yes, thank you very much, Auntie Sewa. Thank you for your help. We've got Auntie Winifred on the line to talk to us about adults who have disabilities as well and some of the stigmatization that they face. So Auntie Winifred, we have some few minutes left before we wrap up. So if you could give us some knowledge on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been such an interesting and insightful session. And I was hoping now I'd have the opportunity to talk about adults because, all these children that we're talking about clearly move on, to become adults. So what do we do when they get to adulthood and actually transition into adulthood? There is a lot of support out there, as we've all highlighted. And I just wanted to stress on the fact about benefits, because I think someone else did ask about benefits. So benefits, there's so many benefits that can be obviously explored, but if you don't know what is out there, you would not be able to access it. So there are agencies. So if a parent or a guardian was looking after a child or an adult with disability, they could access benefits if they're signposted to support services like Carers First. I'm not sure with the different local authorities that we work for, but the one I work for, we have services like Carers First. We've got community agents that would help you to, fill out application forms like PIP and all that. Even Mutability, if you were a driver and didn't have access to cars, we've got state benefits that would obviously give you that support. One of them being the Mutability, as I just mentioned. A lot of these car dealers and garages do that, have that service. So I think when you've got mobility needs, you can get access to a car and you're able to change it every 3 years. So if you didn't know about it, you can explore that. And then also about the respite. Obviously, parents can have respite, whether breakaway, whether your child going somewhere for a few days, maybe during the school holidays. And I also heard from a friend that they could even be given some resource or money to actually go away. So if you wanted to go abroad, there's also services available. And having said that, I just wanted to add, with adults, when a child transitions into an adult, and obviously it's not just social services that give support. When we signpost, we would signpost to agencies, other agencies. So we would normally look at the social care needs, and then the other agencies like the health will look at it. So you can have a budget, or you can have what we call the NHS CHC, continuing healthcare, where it would be health that would fund your care package or your support. So not social services. Health does help. Looking at your needs and how that needs impact. If you have a primary healthcare need, they can obviously fund you. And unlike local authority, when someone transitions into an adult, I'm rushing off because of the time. Please let me know if you want me to slow down. But when you transition into an adult and you're required to pay for services, the only difference between health-funded services and social care services is that with the health, it's not means tested. You don't need to go through like a financial assessment. Whereas the local authority, if they're funding your services, depending on what your needs are, and obviously depending on your income and your expenditure, you may be likely to contribute, which is called client contribution. So we need to bear that in mind. But when you go and access services via health, you don't need to go through a financial assessment. And thinking about an adult, obviously a child that has a disability transitioning into an adult, there is that side where we sort of lose sight of, especially within the African settings, because we see people with disability as not, humans, more, in quote, but sometimes that's how it feels like. And I do empathize with parents and families that brought children like that. But also there's very important things like going into relationship that we need to think about. Do parents ever think that their child will grow up, to get into or develop, foster a relationship with another partner, or even have children of their own? These are discussions that we need to have. And we need to, be able to be very proud and confident enough to have such discussions about. And also about their social life and social integration. There's so many resources out there that people can actually attend, like services. And the other thing about accommodation that I also wanted to hammer on, because we've not actually mentioned about accommodation. When children who transition into adult who have disabilities, they need to develop that independent life where there are places, that like sheltered accommodations. There are special accommodations for people with special needs that they can actually transition into and live independent lives. Obviously, they could have PAs, they could have carers coming in to check on them, but depending on their needs, they do have accommodations as well for people with special needs. So it's not necessarily that you would have your child living with you throughout their lifetime, So we also need to be able to access that services. And then just the stigma, I think we did mention a lot about it. And personally, I'm quite passionate about it. Having a disability does not really mean anything. It's actually people around you that would disable you, not you actually having that kind of impairment. And also not having access to the right resources or services that can disempower you. So we should also bear that in mind. I hope you can all hear me. Hello?
Hello, Auntie Winifred. Thank you.
Oh.
We did.
Yeah, I wasn't getting any feedback, so I wasn't sure whether you could hear me.
You're very loud and clear. We've heard everything, and thank you for sharing those with us, those wisdom, I guess. Thank you. Abna.
Thank you very much, Auntie Winifred. We are wrapping up soon. So in conclusion, what we have learned is that there is support and services available for every impairment that you have, every difficulty that you're having with. There is support out there. We need to tap into that. Every family, every parent who are experiencing these difficulties need to take advantages of these things and not suffer in silence. And number two, we've talked about church and among our community. I want to encourage all of us as a church and as individuals in the church. The church has this part to play, as in putting in facilities that will help these any person with these difficulties be part of the church, have ease of access and be included. I think that's something we wanted to talk about, but I didn't get the chance to. Inclusion. We tend to not give programs and things to people we think are not capable of doing. And for another time, we will talk in depth about that. And the church, I don't know if this church, we've got a hearing loop for people with hearing disabilities. I don't think we have that. So these are things that we need to look into to help those people within our church be comfortable coming to church. I've got promises from the children department leaders that they're going to do their best to include our children in there. So I'm going to hold them to that. And the next time that we have this kind of program, whether we're back in church or not, I will bring you feedback on what has been done.
Just, I guess,
yes.
Because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. So as I said, we need to give education, and not just for the teachers, for our children as well. Because if we are not educating our children that some other children might not be able to do all the things that you do, they are going to bully them. It is normal human nature.
Yeah.
So we need to, whilst we are educating the adults, every adult needs to educate their child. That when you come across a child who cannot do all the things that you can do, you need to help them. You don't need to bully them. You don't need to make fun of them, so that they all would feel included in the services that we're trying to provide for these children. So it's not just the adult. We need to educate our children
Of course.
as well. And then we need to know, in this church, I'm sure we do have SEN team that you can go to, but I'm not sure if everybody even knows. So the churches need to publish, our community, we need to publish who is in charge of these things. If I am a parent in the church and I have a child with a disability, who do I go to in the church when I want something to be done, or if I need something for my child? Is there somebody I can go and talk to?
Educational needs people, we have a team in the church.
We have a team in the church. So I don't know if everybody knows. I was approached by them, and the church does have one, but it needs to be, I don't think it's something, if they didn't approach me, I wouldn't have known. So it's something that needs to be made public. And one thing I also want to touch on is for parents with children who have any of these conditions, ADHD, autism, Down syndrome. Please and please and please again, this is your child. You carry that child for 9 months, disability or no disability, they still are your children. And until you accept that fact that this is your child and they are special, they've got different abilities, and that makes them special. Unless you accept that fact, you cannot tell anybody else around you to accept that fact. It has to come from you first. So, parents who are, let me use the word ashamed, to come forward or to accept that this is what is happening. I mean, parents, a professional will approach a parent and say, oh, you might want to look into helping your child, and that parent will get offended because how dare you tell her that her child has got a disability? You know, it's an insult to certain people. But if you face the truth and you look for help earlier, the better.
I think sometimes it's the way in which we say it as well. So if you suspect a child could have a problem and you want to speak to the parent, I think you have to pick the right moment and use the right language, because if you go telling them, oh, by asset 73 and I won't lie, it's just the way you say it.
I get that. Yeah. I get that. But what I want to say, some people, it doesn't matter how you approach it. Some people will still
be offended.
You know, don't tell me my child has got a problem. You know, some people will still be offended, no matter how. And when it comes to these things, there isn't, apart from being rude, there isn't any other way that you can tell a parent and they wouldn't be heartbroken. The initial response is heartbreak, no matter how you put it. So it's up to you, the parent, in wanting the best for your child, to take this up and look into what you can do for your child. And to sign off, I just want to say quickly that I have an initiative. There is an autism society, I should say, school in Ghana called Clicks Africa Foundation.
So it was started by a lady called Madame Mary. She has an autistic child as well. And through that, she's done a lot of courses and gotten certifications in how to manage these things. Now, here we have a lot of support. Back home in Ghana, support is very, very difficult to come by. And what I have started to do is raising funds for Clicks Africa Foundation. It's in Ghana. I'll send the link and everything to the Women's Ministry Department to put it up on the platform. And we accept any kind of aid. So funds, toys for the kids, books, anything that you've got, we accept those things. So I want to encourage all of us, as we are thinking of how to help our children here, back home, support is very difficult to come by. So I just want to put it out there and encourage all of us. If you want more information, you can give me a call, send me a message, and I will get you all the information that you need. And any help that you can give would be most appreciated. And thank you all for joining us to make this program very successful.
So just quickly, if somebody watched us today and they weren't confident enough to ask a question, or they go home and they think of a question, how can they reach out to the team to ask questions?
The Women's Ministry Department, I'm sure there is a platform for them. If you forward it to the church, they can forward it to the Women's Ministry, and we can find the relevant answers, the relevant professionals to answer those questions.
Perfect.
Or any such questions.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
So I guess that's it. This brings us to the end of the program. My special thanks to the Women's Ministries Department for putting up this program. We've got great feedback, and I'm sure they will do a part 2 of disability awareness at some point. And of course, thanks to the media team for their support for making this happen. Abina, you prayed for us to start. Do you mind praying for us to close as well then?
I don't mind.
Okay, let's pray.
Let's bow our heads for a prayer. Enija was free, that was sick. Baby, I'll do an arbitrary. That was a swab at your fin, or beige, my dear, a cosua, no one. Yes, I was sassy from quite be swap from so in that shade. Nadia, yes, you're free, hey, me, man, and so about my another door, young home, and what be I want a young from one for fro. Said the bay I was struck when to no yen, I bet to me a 2 boom. That was sick, the old and arbitrary. And I woman that the acano, yes, show some an in Shamay. Oh, what do anyway, homo bromonty. Amen.
There for the Anti-Christ series continuation. God bless you. Have a good week. See you at some point soon. Bye.
Bye.
So